How do you go from this, short and sweet, to this, a full 8-bar phrase? You can use what I call the infinite lick machine. It works like this. You take a simple lick, maybe it's that one, and then you use the appropriate scale either before the lick or after the lick, or before and after the lick, and then you just choose randomly any one of these little techniques and you throw them in. You've got easily an 8-bar phrase, maybe more. It could go on forever if you wanted to. Let's work through it together using this simple lick, and then you'll see how it works. And since it's an A minor pentatonic, we could just start with the scale and then end with the lick. That would be like this. Or we could do the opposite. We could start with the lick and then descend through the rest of the scale. That would be like this. Now, just to make it a little more interesting, let's make it the blues scale. So that just means that we're adding the blue note on the way down, right? So we do the lick, and then we descend A minor pentatonic with the blue note. There we go. Now we've done the easiest part of the infinite lick machine, which is just taking the lick and connecting it with this scale. Now we get to do the more fun part, which is choosing from any of these techniques, which help us to extend the lick. And not only that, but these techniques will also help us to break up scale-wise playing. As you'll see, it'll prevent us from just following in the next note in the scale, next note in the scale. So let's take at random just one of these techniques. I'm going to take this one, the roll. So I'm going to put the roll right after the lick, let's say. I'm going to play the lick, I'm going to do a roll, and then I'm going to continue on with minor pentatonic as we did. Here's what I call a roll. Now, the term roll is sometimes used for different things in music, but in this case, we're using it in the sense of rolling our third finger up a string. Because sometimes when we want the note that is just up a string, same fret, it's much easier to just lie the finger down or roll it over to get that note, rather than jumping the finger. Jumping the finger is often too slow, and it means that the previous note gets stopped earlier, right? So if we just roll it, that makes it a little faster and a little smoother. Now, I think those things alone are already making for a pretty cool lick. We've got the original lick, which is a cool bend to begin with. We've got the roll, which helps to jumble up the notes in a cool way. We've got the blue note. We're resolving on the root. It's pretty good. Let's hear it with this jam track. But of course, with the infinite lick machine, we can keep going and keep going. So let's just add another roll on the next string. So if I start with the lick, roll, roll again on the A to D string. We could also start with the scale, do the lick, and in this case, we could continue on with everything we've written so far. So why don't we start at the high end of A minor pentatonic at the 8th fret, right there on the high E string, descend A minor pentatonic, do the lick, do a roll, do another roll, play the blue note, and land on the root. That would be like this. Ooh, that's pretty long already, right? All the tabs from this video are going to be available on our Patreon. The link to that is below, and you can get lots more tips like this from my book called Guitar Soloing Like a Pro, which is available on Amazon. Okay, so we've got scale, we've got rolls, we've got the blue note. Let's choose one of our other techniques. I'm going to pick change direction. So if I just change direction at any point, it means that I'm going to end up playing something different. Either I could go from descending to ascending, or I could change direction in the sense of changing pentatonic shapes at some point. So let's say after we get through the blue note, here, instead of going to the bottom E string there, I'm going to slide down to the next pentatonic shape and then hit the root there. It actually ends up being the same notes, right? Because if I go is the same as, but when we go this way, it allows us to do a little slide instead. So the whole thing so far, slowly, is. And with the track. So let's pick another technique from the list. We also have pattern. And what that means is these are just common patterns or common ways that we can break up scale-wise playing. So we could do this at the beginning of our long lick, right? Because at the beginning so far we just have A minor pentatonic. Instead of just playing those notes in a row, we could play, let's say, 3 notes descending, back 1, and then down 5. 3, then 5, that's just a pattern, right? 3, then 5. You could do 2, then 4, you could do 2, back 1, 2, whatever. But 3 and 5 is a really good one. It's a little more unusual. That's why it sounds cool. So 3 and 5 is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So once we've got our pattern down, we can connect it with everything else, right? So now we have the pattern, our lick, a roll, another roll, blue note, change direction, slide down to the root. Let's keep going. We could decide to change directions again and start heading up because we're kind of at the bottom here, right? So all we have to do is just start heading back the way we came. And maybe we go up to just past the root and then hit the root again. So when we land on here on this A with our 3rd finger, we'll just come right back the way we came. Go up to the G string, but then land on the root again, right? So the ending will now be. But if we do it right away, it'll sound connected with everything else. So we've got pattern, lick, roll, blue note, and change direction, and landing on the root again. That's getting pretty long. So that gives us 4 full measures now, right? We've gone from 1 little lick to 4 measures. But let's keep going. We might as well try it out, see how the machine works. We could make this bottom part a little more interesting. So let's just choose another technique. Let's choose double the note. We haven't done that one yet. I really like this one, especially in the lower range of the guitar, on the low E and the A string. I just think it sounds good down there. And so double the note, all I mean is that you just take one of the notes, or 2 of the notes, and you play them twice before you move on to the next note. So let's say when we get to the root here, we double that note. And why don't we just double the next one as well while we're at it? So we get to the bottom. We double those 2 notes and we continue on our way. Again, it extends the lick just a little bit longer, but it also just sounds really cool. It sounds more interesting, right? When we get to that moment. Now, it's not scale-wise. It sort of hangs out there for just a little bit. Let's put it all together. Remember that you're really going to want to work on your alternate picking, especially with those doubling the notes. We're just doing them at the same tempo. They're still just 1/8 notes. We could do them twice as fast. That would be cool. But right now, we're just doing almost everything as an 1/8 note. That bend is the only note that's longer than anything else. That's a quarter note. It's twice that. But everything else is steady 1/8 notes. That's what's giving it that perpetual feeling, you know, like a train that just can't be stopped. Now Now there's one more technique in the infinite lick machine that we haven't used yet, and it doesn't really have a name, so I'm calling it the switchback here. And I always use this technique when I'm ascending. So I think of it this way. When I'm descending, I use the roll that we've already done twice, right? That just seems comfortable, it works well. But when I'm ascending, that doesn't really work. So I use what's called the switchback. And tons of famous guitar players will do this technique. The way it works is, let's say I'm ascending here 5, 7, 5, 7 of the A minor pentatonic, but I want to switch back a string. Same fret. I can't roll, right? And so what a lot of guitar players will do is when they want to switch back a string but the same fret, they'll use the second finger to do it because the second finger is free at that moment. And a roll doesn't really work this direction, right? So if you're ascending the A string, D string like that, then the second finger comes in and grabs the note below, so you can play that note and then continue on the direction you were going. So let's add that switchback. When we're going on the D string, we'll switch back to the A string on the 7th fret on our way back up, right? We were on the root here. We were going to double that one and the next one. Slide up. We get to the D string, and then we're going to switch back and continue on our way. Let's put the whole thing in context from the top, from the pattern to the lick, to the roll, to the second roll, to the blue note, to the change direction sliding down, doubling 2 notes, coming back up the scale with the switchback, and then end on the root. Whew, that's a lot. It sounds really complex, right? But it's really not, and eventually you can just apply these different techniques almost randomly in the moment when you're improvising. And I would like to know, are there any other techniques that all of you are using to extend your lines longer that we could add to the infinite lick machine? Or are there some guitar players that you think are very good examples of using these types of techniques? Let me know in the comments below. And just like we added 2 rolls, one after the other, we could add 2 switchbacks, one after the other. So let's add one again when we're on the G string. So we have one from the D to the A string. We could have one from the G to the D string. Pretty cool. Whole thing. Nice, it's getting pretty long, but we could keep going, right? What if we change directions again? And change directions, remember, could mean going from ascending to descending and vice versa, or it could mean sliding into the next pentatonic shape. So we're coming back up, we do our switchbacks, and instead of finishing there, let's slide to the next shape. What's the next shape? It's the extension shape. And we could end on the root there, right? So it would be... There, we know that because we memorized where that root is, right? And we could bring this whole thing full circle by doing the lick again up an octave because it's right here. If we think of that lick as being originally here, up an octave would be right here in extension shape. Same thing, we could finish with the lick. So we start with the pattern, then we have the lick, and then we have a bunch of tricks, and we move around, we come all the way up to extension shape, and we finish with the lick. It won't even sound like we're repeating the lick because the previous one is so embedded in everything else, right? It'll just sound like a really cool finish. One of the things you're going to need to get good at using the infinite lick machine is you're going to need a handful of licks to start with, because the whole system is based on starting with a lick, adding the scale before or after, and then using those techniques. And this video right here has my top 10 favorite licks of all time. That'll help you out. My name is Blue Morris, and I teach guitar lessons here in Vancouver, Canada. I'll see you in the next one.